I'm Sharon from Kameo Recruitment. I'm here today to talk to you about interview preparation. So hopefully this will help you either now or in the future. So first of all, what is an interview for? Interviews give both the employer and interviewee the opportunity to find out if the job is suitable. Interviews are a two-way process, and it's important that this is remembered, as choosing the right job can start you on a good path for your chosen career. Now, interviews can be really, really scary for you, whether you're younger or older. The one thing to really remember is that it is a two-way process. So you have just as much right to come out of that interview and think, I don't want to work for that company, as they do to decide that you're not the right person for them. So hopefully that will give you a bit of confidence when you're going into an interview. So preparation for an interview is really, really important. The things that you should do before you go to an interview. First of all, read through the job specification. So a job specification is a list of the duties that you will have within that job that you should have been given. So make sure you read through the job specification and you highlight the areas that you have experience in, or the things that you would like to learn, so that when you speak to them in the interview, you can tell them what you do know, but also the areas that you may need some advice and guidance as well. Next thing is research the company. So I'm sure all of you have been on computers and are able to use Google. You can look up the company and find the website. They're often the best place to research a company. So on the website, they'll have an About Us section, which I would really recommend reading. It will tell you on there about the company, the culture, the things they've been involved in as well. So they may well be involved in charity events and things like that. So they will give you things to talk about when you actually go to your interview. Read over your CV. That's really, really important. A lot of people think that they know their CV, but actually they don't. They may have written something previously and then forgotten that it was on there. So that if you are in an interview and someone asks you questions about your CV, you are able to actually answer them. Big tip for you now, plan your route and always allow for delays. So I work in recruitment, I go out across Cambridge a lot and I have a lot of meetings, but planning your route is so crucial. There may be some roadworks, for example, or if you're using public transport, there may be some delays. So make sure you plan and allow yourself enough time. So arriving early will give you the best time to compose yourself as well. The one thing I would say, if you can do it, is do a trial run. So if, for example, you're going yourself, that's great. If your parents are taking you, then again, make sure and see if they can do the trial run with you. If you can't do a trial run, the one thing I would recommend is Google Maps Street View. It's really, really useful for this. So you can go on there, you can type in the road, you can have a play around with the camera, you can actually see the road. From there, you can see hopefully the front of the building where you'll be walking in. So it's just about familiarising yourself so you've got the confidence to know where you're going on the day. Another thing, decide what outfit you will wear. First impressions are so important, and having smart clothing will also make you feel a lot more confident. So don't go in trainers, don't wear denim. A jacket, a blazer is always really, really useful to wear. A shirt as well. Make yourself look smart, because even if you're going, for example, to McDonald's, they have a uniform. We know they have uniforms, but actually when you go to the interview, you're creating an impression. So still dress smart. Write a list of your strengths and weaknesses as well, things that you've achieved, hobbies, etc. These will help you when you're answering the questions about yourself. It can be really, really hard to talk about yourself in a positive way. We know that this is one thing that people do struggle with. So if you're finding it hard to think about your own strengths and weaknesses, the one tip I would say is ask one of your friends or family, as they know you very, very well, and it's often easier for somebody else to tell you what your strengths are. So make sure you're aware of them. Think of some examples of where you use those strengths as well, which can be really useful. The other thing I would suggest, read over common interview questions. If you're able to, ask your friends and family to practice with you. Now, this may sound really, really silly. I did it with my daughter and it was really useful. So practicing questions off the cuff when you're not expecting them. Get someone to fire questions at you and say, tell me about yourself when you're not expecting it. And it will make you think quicker so that when you are in an interview, you are quick at answering those questions and you don't get fazed by it as well. So interview questions. These are questions that are likely to be asked by the employer to you. The first question is likely to be, tell me a bit about yourself. Have an answer prepared which gives a summary of what you like doing. This is really important, because if you get stuck on that first question and you think, oh no, you will start panicking. So if you can have this question prepared, you're going to go into the interview and you're going to start it off on a really positive note. Other common questions are, what are your strengths and weaknesses, which we just covered. Why are you interested in working for that company? That's really important. That company is going to want to know why you want to work for them specifically. So again, your research on the company will be really useful for this, because you can talk about maybe what they do alongside their work, so the fact that they help the local community, etc. What interests you about the job? So again, why are you interested in that specific job? And again, you need to have an answer prepared for this, and it's something you can take time to prepare for beforehand. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? This can be really, really hard to answer, especially when you are younger, but think about where you see your career going. If you're going for a permanent role and you say, well, 5 years time, I think I might be in Australia, that's fine if that's what you want to do, but think about how that comes across to that employer if they're looking for somebody that's going to stay and develop with them. So I'm not asking you to lie, but just think about the answer that you give at the time. Tell me about a time when you made a mistake. We all make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. What they're looking for, they're not interested in the mistake you made. What they want to know is how you resolved that mistake and what you did. And again, tell me how you handled a difficult situation. Again, they're not worried about the situation that you were in. They want to know how you handled it and what you did to resolve it and what you learned from it. And then finally, another example is, tell me about your biggest accomplishments. So think about what you've achieved. This could be something personally. You may have done some volunteering. You may have done your Duke of Edinburgh, all of those kind of things. But think about what's personal to you and why you feel that that was your biggest achievement. A tip here, listen to the questions and ask them to repeat if you're not sure. Be honest, and if you don't know the answer, it's better to say than to lie. So sometimes questions come across in a different way. If you need time to think, it's absolutely fine to say so. And also lying, do not lie. That is so important. I've had people that have interviewed with companies that I work with, and they've tried to talk their way through not knowing the answer, and actually that's been their downfall. So rather than lie, it's better to be honest and say, actually, I don't know what the answer to that is, but I would go away and find out. So next one, interview questions asked by the interviewee, which is yourselves. So the last question is likely to be from the employer asking yourselves if you have any questions. It's really, really good to be prepared. And more importantly, you want to find out information for yourself too. So the common questions that you might want to find out would be, how would you describe a typical day for the person doing this job? So important that you understand what the duties are. So a job specification will give you an overview, but actually someone telling you about your day-to-day duties is much better. What sort of training will I receive? Again, you'll want to know whether you're maybe working alongside somebody, whether they intend to put you on courses, etc. What is the team I'll be working in like? Very, very important. So we choose our friends. We don't necessarily choose the people we work with from the outset. A lot of the time, people you work with do become friends, but it is so important that the team that you work with will bond with you and you get on with them. So I think that's very, very important that you find out what they're like as well. Are there opportunities to progress in the future? If you're looking for a job long term, it's important to know what the opportunities with that business are, whether that be within the department. It may be a big company and you can progress into other departments in the future. So questions that you should not be asked. This is really, really important. There's certain things that when you are at an interview, you're not allowed to be asked because it can be taken as discrimination. So the first thing is, are you from the UK? Is English your first language? They can't ask you in that way, but what they can ask you is, are you eligible to work in the UK? Everyone in the UK needs to have the right to work. So that's what they're trying to find out, but it depends how they ask it. How old are you? They can't ask you that. Do you have any disabilities? Do you have any criminal convictions, or are you planning on having children in the near future? All of these things you're not supposed to be asked. So if you do, it is worth mentioning it to your parents, your tutors, friends, etc., so that something can be done about it. The top tip, do not ask questions about salary in your interview unless they bring it up first. You don't want to be seen that you're there just to obviously get money. We know we need money, but it needs to be that it's not the most important thing that you talk about. So types of interview, there's a few different types of interviews, but finding out beforehand will give you time to prepare for your interview. So we have one-to-one interview. That's where you're sitting in front of one person and talking to them. Competency-based interviews will be tell me about a time when. So if you know about it before, you can prepare some examples to talk about. A group interview, these often include role play exercises, team-based scenario exercises, and involve other interviewees. Again, it's really important that you know you're going into that. If you walk into a room and there's another 20 people, it can be really daunting if you don't know that that is part of the process. And finally, make a formal presentation. This is more so for sales roles or people with a bit more experience. However, there are times that I know people who've gone into their career and had to do it straight away. So again, if you have got to make a formal presentation, the one thing I would say is practice in front of people beforehand to give you the most confidence. So most interviews nowadays take a two-stage format, which allows all questions to be answered. And often you'll have the opportunity to meet the team that you're working in with, which again, is really important. It's also more common for companies to use psychometric testing. So these are often completed at home and are looking at your personality. So you'll get sent an email and you'll have to fill it in. What I would say with those is be 100% honest and answer them the way that you should and how you feel, not what you think that they would want to see from you. They use it as a tool. It's not normally the deciding factor. There's no right or wrong answers. So body language, one of the biggest things in an interview. When you arrive and you leave as well, it's always important to shake hands with a firm handshake. And obviously smile as well. So maintain eye contact. Eye contact is really important. Humans read each other through our eyes. So make sure that you do maintain that eye contact. Don't look around the room like this. People will think that you're not interested in listening to them. So that eye contact is very important. Do not cross your arms as you'll appear bored or slouch in your chair. Keep yourself upright. Obviously, you can mimic the other person that's interviewing you to a certain point, but make sure that you maintain professionalism all the time. And again, be positive and smile. Everybody loves to smile. They don't want to employ somebody who comes across as really miserable. So make sure you definitely keep that smile on your face. What to take to your interview? So first of all, I would say print a copy of your CV and the job specification. It's always good to have these to refer to. You are allowed to have them out in front of you in an interview, so make sure that you have them with you. Print some information on the company. So where I said research the company, don't just write some notes, print some information off about the company as well and take it with you. It shows that you have actually taken the time to do that. Anyone can say, oh, I looked on your website, but actually printing the information off and taking it with you shows that you have done that. And finally, a notebook. It's always useful to write your questions down beforehand, so you can write the questions down that you want to ask. And also you can take notes during the interview as well. A lot of people think that you're not allowed to do this, but actually it shows that you're organised and you are there and you want to find out more. So finally, extra information and tips for you. So social media, more employers are looking on your social media sites. So it's important that you check your photos, your language, your comments beforehand. They will look at that. If you've got things open, they will see them. It's in public viewing. And also your profile pictures are really, really important. So take the time to review those beforehand. One of my tips that I use, always say yes if you're offered a glass of water. The reason for this is if you need to a few seconds to compose your answer, you can take a sip of water before you start. So I'm going to do an example now. If someone asked me a question and I didn't know the answer, I would sit here and be like, I look really strange. If someone asked me a question I didn't know the answer and I went, that's given me a few seconds to actually stop and think about what I wanted to say. And it's exactly the same if you are in an interview situation. So always say yes and use it if you need to. And finally, when you leave, thank them for their time and express an interest in the position. Some people will say don't be over enthusiastic, but it's important that when you leave, they know that you're interested in that job. So thank them. It's good to say, I'd really love to hear from you soon. I'm really excited in the opportunity that you've got on offer, and leave on a good impression. So thank you very much for listening.